Oh, that's a little bit too long. Hold on 1 second here. There we go. All right, Forum, how you doing? How you be? Top to the AB. I was trying to clean myself up. I was looking like a true hobo earlier here a little bit, so I was trying to clean myself up a little bit. I think I look all right. I think I look presentable, which is what I was going for. I wasn't going for just immaculate. I just wanted to be just even enough to make it look like I tried. I hope everybody is having a good Monday. My Monday has been crazy. Let me actually turn down my audio just a tad here. I know I'm not peaking, but I just want to just make sure that I'm not even close there. I should be perfectly fine, but yeah, who knows these days. Let me make sure I can see the chat. Let me see here, OBS. Let's see, where did the chat go, brother? I know you're around here somewhere. Where is my chat? Chat. Well, I know it's updating, and I know I put something in it earlier, so I'm just going. Oh, here it is. It's right in my face. Having one of those days. Alrighty, Forum. Let's get to work, man. Hopefully this Monday won't be painful. I'll try to make this as easy as possible. Hopefully we can help some people here. Alrighty, let's start with the first one here. Let me switch it up. Alrighty. So this is from Smooth25. Why the heck can my gaming laptop run games smoothly except for Minecraft? So literally run all games 50 to 100 FPS except Minecraft, constantly at 10 to 30 FPS, which is so annoying because I know Minecraft does not need high specs to play. Why is this happening? Okay, so you said gaming laptop, but you didn't really mention the specs, so it's kind of hard for me to make kind of inferences without the specs specifically. But the first thing I was thinking of as soon as you said this, the first thing that came to mind was VSync. Is that maybe that you have VSync on, and because you have VSync on, maybe it's nerfing some of your frames, so that it's, you know, putting you right at 30 because you're really at like 50 something, and it may be nerfing you down because you're not going over 60, something along those lines. Ideally, because it's Minecraft, you can usually get kind of higher FPS, but I've heard people have problems with Minecraft. I myself don't play it very often. I think I played it once, but by the time Minecraft came out, I was already over 30. so I had already ascended to getting set in my ways, so I never came back. But with Minecraft that's the first thing I would think of is VSync. The only other thing that I would think of is maybe that it's trying to use your integrated graphics instead of the actual GPU on the laptop. So if your laptop has a actual dedicated GPU versus the integrated graphics, maybe it's using the integrated graphics instead. So like maybe it can choose which GPU to use or something along those lines. If it's NVIDIA, you can go into the NVIDIA control panel and set it, because you were saying that it's only happening in this one game. All the other games work fine. It could be that you have settings in Minecraft on the NVIDIA control panel that overwrite the global settings that are set up by default. So it could be maybe that you had gone in or maybe made a change or maybe fell asleep on your keyboard and maybe made a change, something like that, but it was only affecting Minecraft. You may have made a change and enabled VSync or set it to only use the integrated graphics instead of the actual graphics card for Minecraft. So you might want to just go into the NVIDIA control panel, go to Minecraft, and just check and make sure that you haven't made any settings that supersede the global settings that are default for Minecraft. So those are the main two things that I really can think of, is VSync or maybe it's trying to use integrated graphics, either or. So that's all I can think of, man. Hopefully that helps. It looks like a lot of people may have had similar ideas here, seeing the fact that you already have 11 comments. But that is it for Smooth A. Alrighty, moving right on along here. Alrighty. So this is from Hefty Memory 9700. Hey, what's up, Hefty Memory? Google Play Store is removed. Okay, so this is a phone issue. I'm trying to help my grandma download an app, but for her Google Play Store, it's not anywhere on her phone. Okay, I've tried searching it up in the apps and everything, but it is not there. I don't even know how that is possible, since you can't uninstall Google Play Store. Any help? You're right, you can't really uninstall Google Play Store. I'm thinking that maybe she has a out of date version of Android. I've had yearly like I've had phones that were Android that I've had turned off for like years because I just had them powered off because I wasn't using it because I switched to like Apple or something like that, and then I power them on and they have the oldest version of Android and they still have the Google Play Store. So I would say in this particular situation, the quickest way to probably resolve this and get it to actually show up is to just update it. Check and see if there's any updates, and see if there is one, then go ahead and try to update to the most recent version of Android and see if that will actually reinstall the Google Play Store or make the Google Play Store show up. But I'm guessing it may just be some type of a bug with that particular version of Android that you have. Something along those lines. I'm not exactly sure what you can actually do to make Google Play Store go away. That's kind of an interesting one. I'm thinking that it's maybe just hidden from view, like if you're just not seeing it. But you said you already tried to do a search for it and it didn't pop up, which means that it didn't see it in applications. So that's a little interesting. Yeah, check for updates. That's the only thing I can really think of on that one. Check for updates, reboot it, try to reset it back to default settings. It's kind of like your last ditch effort, but I wouldn't go that far. I would say first off, try to see if possible, if there is any way to update it. Even if it means updating to a beta version, that's fine too. Just any type of an update should probably get that back to you. And if it doesn't, it'll at least give you an error and you'll have a reason to follow up. So it may be that, the Google Play Store application may have gotten corrupted somehow or something along those lines. So whenever you try to upgrade it and it tried to reinstall it, it may throw an error, but at least now you have an error and you have something to look up. So that's the way I would play it. I would try to upgrade it as soon as possible to see if I can get the Google Play Store to show up. Hopefully that helps. That's the only real thing I can think of there, because everything else is going to be destructive. Outside of reboot, reset, and upgrade, everything else after that is just destructive. So that'll be like literally wiping it or putting it back to default settings, yada yada yada. Alrighty, hefty memory. So we're gonna go ahead and move on here. Well, he has a ton of comments on that, so ideally he has probably gotten a lot of help on that. I try not to look at the comments too much because I don't want to say something that somebody else has already said and then they'd be like, oh, you just copied what somebody else is reading. I'm just doing these off the dome because it strengthens me, and I feel like I'm more genuine when I say that kind of stuff. We're but 5 episodes in. I want to get stronger at this, and just kind of go across the board between tech support and networking and be able to troubleshoot those just off the dome. Now, of course, if I am wrong, I'll come back on the next video and say it or something along those lines and let you guys know. Alrighty, this is from Strange C 8363. My ex keeps signing me up for spam. Okay, that sounds quite vengeful. Anyway, I can track the IP address of the form fills. What? Okay, so we got a person whose ex is not being very friendly. Oh, I can relate. I've had that problem before. I get where you're coming from. But I mean, I've never had somebody sign me up for spam. That's a little bit too far. This may be a long shot, but my ex-husband has been signing me up for mailing lists since our divorce in June. I know for a fact it is him. Okay. The places include countless colleges and universities, political campaigns, lenders, and even my former high school. Is there a way I can figure out if the IP address for these form fills? Okay, like would any of these institutions have the IP address or any other identifiable information? Would any of these institutions have the IP address or any identifiable information? I would only need it to be able to prove the harassment in court and get a restraining order against them. Thank you in advance for any help. Okay, so let's think about this. So what she thinks that her husband is basically signing her up for form fills, or basically sites where you can pretty much go to and sign up for things. But typically when you go to those sites, they just ask you to put in your email address. So whether or not they would actually pick up his public IP address whenever he put in her email address is something different. Now, is there a way I could figure out the IP address of these form fills? Like, would any of these institutions have the IP address or any other identifiable information? Okay, but she's wanting his IP information from when he set up. So here's the thing. If he was trying to let's think about this. So if you had created a form field, you basically, in order to get those, you just essentially just put in somebody's email address. Now, is it a possibility that those sites actually kept the public IP address of the person who was putting in their email address? It's definitely possible, and it's possible that maybe you can get that subpoenaed in court so that you can actually prove that that IP address belonged to him. But here's the thing, he can deny it all day long, because if he has a dynamic IP address, then his IP address could have changed. And all he has to do is say, hey, I don't have a static IP address at my home, and because I don't have a static IP address, it can change, and this may not even have been me at that particular moment in time. Now, of course, it's possible that whenever he did that information and they were to copy that information from his source IP whenever he tried to reach that particular site to do the mailing information, it's also possible that they may have gotten geolocation and may have actually pinpointed it down to that area. But even if they pinpointed it down to their area, there's no guarantee. He can just deny it and just be like, oh, hey, no, that's not my IP address. My IP address is so and so and so and so, and it's been like this for I don't know how long. It changes IP address frequently, so that IP address could belong to anyone. So it's really hard to prove that in court. I'm not a lawyer. I just want to say that right off the bat. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just talking from an engineering support standpoint. It is very, very hard to prove that an IP address belongs to somebody in court unless they had a static IP address or they subpoenaed the ISP in order to prove that you had that IP address at that particular moment in time and it matched the mailing list. Now we're talking about some serious stuff, because you would have had to have subpoenaed the mailing list to get the IP address, and then once you had the IP address, then you would have had to have subpoenaed the internet service provider to line up the IP address with the time and date of when that was entered. That's a lot. That is a lot, but that's how you would do it. You would essentially check with the mailing company or whoever that has been sending you these malicious, well, not necessarily malicious, but spam emails, and subpoena them to give you the IP address and the time and date when that IP address added your email address to their mailing list. And then once you have the IP address and the time information, then you cross-check that with the ISP's public IP address and time for when you had that particular lease. And then you would cross-check them in order to make sure that that IP address belongs to him. But we're talking about getting two companies to cooperate, multiple companies, but more than one company to cooperate, which I don't think is possible, but it's worth a shot. But that's essentially what you would have to do. That'd be the only way you can prove it. And that'd be the only way you can prove it so that he can't disprove it. Right? Because he can't say, oh, hey, I had a different IP address. Like, no. This is matched by time. We cross-checked the time between when you went to this site and when you logged in with your IP address to the internet service provider, and we gave you this IP. This is your IP address at this particular point in time, and it is not up for debate. So that's the only way you can just nail them to the wall, or just nail her to the wall, or whomever. But of course, this is a woman asking this, but I'm just saying it doesn't matter who it is, but that's how you would do it. You would need to have an IP address plus the time information. Ironically, identity with layer 7 intrusion and inspection, identity allows you to match user to IP information. So if any of these sites had some type of identity set up where they can match your user to IP information from your public IP address, or you have to log in order to put in somebody's email address, then they may actually have that information, and you may be able to get it depending on how long ago that was. So I would, at least try, but if they come back as no, you need both of them to cooperate, the internet service provider especially, but then all these mailing labels, political campaigns, so on and so forth. Whew, that is a lot to say, but that is essentially what you would need to do. I hope that helps. Yeah, that's a tricky one, but that's essentially what you would have to do in order to get that situation to work. Because even if you got the IP address, it won't do you any good if you don't have a timestamp. You got to have that timestamp, otherwise he can just wiggle his way right out of it. That'd be the equivalent of signing a prenup under duress. Like it can be thrown out in court. This can be thrown out in court if you don't have a timestamp. And again, I'm not a lawyer. It's just an IP address without a timestamp. That's like having a person, a place, without a time. So how would I know what time to show up if I only know the person and the place? You see what I'm saying? So that's why, it just doesn't seem like that would actually work without a timestamp. Whew. Okay, Strange C. I hope that helped. Alrighty, so we got a new one here. Let's see. This is from Necri 1128. And Necri writes, my brother installed some sort of file compressor that changed the way his computer downloads files. Can someone help me revert it? Yes. So my brother downloaded this file compressor, which I already deleted, and he was trying to download Optifine for Minecraft. I'm not sure what Optifine is. There's been a lot of Minecraft issues today. On my computer, when I download it, it is labeled as an executable jar file, but he is labeled as just a jar file. But his is labeled as just a jar file. Okay, hold on, let me reread that. On my computer, when I download it, it is labeled as an executable jar file, but his is labeled as just a jar file. This is causing it to not work the way it is intended. How can I make the file a executable jar file rather than just a jar file? Thanks for your help in advance. Okay, well, it looks like he downloaded some software, and the software has a jar file, but the jar file is an executable. So the best way to handle that particular situation is to uninstall and reinstall. So if you downloaded it and you actually get an executable jar file, but he doesn't, then more than likely what may have happened is that his spam killed it. So if he has like an antivirus or some type of firewall, his firewall may have killed it because it was an executable. And because it was an executable, it just wiped it out. So even if you uninstalled and reinstalled, it may give you the exact same result. But at least at that time, you would be able to see it. But more than likely, what happened with his and why his just shows a jar is because it killed the executable file. So what I would do first in this particular situation, I don't know why it shows that I'm peeking, even though I know I'm not peeking. Let me just lower it a little bit here. And if I need to change, I'll just change it in post. So we'll just lower it a little bit just to make sure that it's not too loud. So what I would do in this particular situation is I would check your antivirus and your firewall to make sure that the executable jar file is not there. It may have just completely had gotten killed by the antivirus, and if that's the case, you may have to whitelist it in order for it to actually show up. Executable files are a little iffy that way. So in this particular situation, that's the first thing I would check. I would check your antivirus, your spam, Windows Defender, things of that nature, and then check and see if you see the executable file there. If you do, you need to restore it or whitelist it. But when you restore it, ideally it should whitelist it, but you would need to restore that file in order for it to work properly, or uninstall, reinstall. And those will be the two kind of ways to handle that particular situation. So hope that helps, Neckery. Alrighty, got some fun issues today. I'm kind of going all over the place. This is pretty good. Alrighty. Okay, so this one is a pretty long one. Let me see if I can, how much I can get in on the screen. Okay, cool. We'll just go here and we'll just go scroll down when we get to it. Alrighty, this is from the Thrall. Computer only crashes while browsing the internet and under small load. Never had it happen while gaming. Hello all, I'm having an issue with my computer crashing while watching YouTube mostly, or just browsing the internet. I've had it for over 3 years now, and it has only happened while on the internet, never while gaming. I'm not sure where to go from here because I've researched threads with the following errors from Event Viewer and tried the fixes. I've attached the dump files if anyone could try to give me a hand with this, as I'm not sure how to read them. I think it's hardware and looking for the part to replace. When the crash occurs, there is no blue screen of death. The mouse and screen freeze. Okay. And it will stay like that before resetting itself around 3 minutes later. Thank you for any help. Well, from a bug check, the bug check was description. Okay, so this is what he has. Okay, so some event viewer info. The computer has rebooted from a bug check. The bug check was blah. The description for event ID 14 from some source, well, that's in, I think that's NVIDIA, cannot be found. Either that or the component that raised this event is not installed on your computer, or that the installation is corrupted. You can install or repair the component on the computer. The following device information was included in the event. Device video 3. So yeah, I think this is actually going to be graphics related. So for this one here, I would say whenever you're running into this situation, well, okay, it doesn't happen when you're in games, which is kind of interesting, but I would still try to upgrade the driver of your graphics card to see if that may actually resolve the issue. It seems like it happens so infrequent that it's kind of hard to put a finger on it. So if that's the case, you don't mention how long you've had you've had it for over 3 years, and it's only happened while on the internet, never while gaming. But he doesn't actually mention specifically how long he's had the issue. If he's had the issue for the entirety of 3 years, then more than likely he's already updated his graphics card drivers. So, but if he's still having the issue, then it may be that he may have some issues with some of the memory on the graphics card, or his RAM. So either or. So maybe his RAM may have a corrupted sector, and because of that, that may be causing this particular issue. It's really hard to say without actually looking at the bug information, but those would be the main two that I would think of. But typically, whenever you have a corrupted RAM or something like that, and you hit a corrupted sector, it will actually give you a blue screen. The fact that it's freezing for you makes me think that you really do have a graphics issue, and this NVLDD MKM is not lying, and it may be that your graphics card is just not having a good time. And if that's the case, then you may be looking at more so a hardware issue than anything, or a paging issue. I'm sorry, there was a little pop-up on my screen. So yeah, with this one here, I would say look towards the graphics card, try to uninstall, reinstall drivers, wipe any drivers from any other type of software. Like for example, if you had an AMD card and you switch to an NVIDIA, something like that, make sure you uninstall all the AMD drivers and just install the most up-to-date NVIDIA driver. See if that works. If that doesn't work and you still have the problem, then I would take a look at your memory. If you have more than one stick, I would try to use just one stick. If it's frequent enough, then like let's say if it happens once every week, then for a week I would only run at one stick of RAM and see if I still have the issue. If the issue goes away, then you may have a bad stick of RAM, and at that point you can then start scanning your RAM and see if there's any bad boot sectors. I'm sorry, not boot sectors, but just sectors on the RAM, and scan it and see if you have any problems. But that's how I would handle it. I would probably look to the graphics card first because of the NVL thing that it's showing you, and then after that I would look at the memory and see if that kind of resolves your issue. But those are the two ways I would handle that particular situation without looking at the dump file itself. Alrighty, Nethral. Hope that helps, bro. Alrighty, let's see. Let's check the time here. Everything looks good. Making sure that I'm not dropping any frames. Dropped frames 58%. What is going on? I'm sorry. Hold on one second here. I'm just gonna pause my stream real quick. Be right back. Okay. Wow. That was awful. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Let me make sure. Yeah, that was just awful. I didn't know it was dropping so many frames. I'll be sure to upload the full version correctly. It looks like I was having so I can actually explain what was actually happening here. So whenever I was actually doing the just going through the videos, I noticed that I had over 58% drop frames, which is insane. So what ended up happening is at one point in time I had switched to my wired versus my wireless, because my wired really is a wired connection, but it's a really long link, and it's a really long link from here to where my cable modem is. So I actually had it on wired instead of wireless, but I've been actually doing these on wireless and I haven't dropped any frames. And then when I switched to wired, I dropped so many frames, it was ridiculous. So yeah, it looks like I may have some issues with my connectivity going between my wire connection and going back to my modem. So I'll have to reevaluate that, maybe do power over Ethernet. But at the same time, whenever I do try power over Ethernet, its speed is on par with Wi-Fi, so I might as well just stay on Wi-Fi. and it looks like that may be the case here. It looks like I got nerfed whenever I was going on wired, because I was only showing 2 megabits per second upload, which is nowhere near enough to actually run it at the speed that I'm running at when I'm actually streaming to multiple platforms. So yeah, troubleshoot my own issue. That's exactly what happened there. But now it looks like everything is fine here. It looks like my megabits per second upload is around 6 megabits per second with no dropped frames on Wi-Fi, which is crazy. So yeah, it looks like that was what was happening there. So I do apologize for that. Hopefully that won't happen again. I'll just make sure I just disable control my wire connection from here on out. Alrighty, what time is it here? 8:26. Okay, cool. That issue only took us 4 minutes, but that was a freebie. Alrighty, so we're gonna move on to the next one here. Okay, cool. I think we already talked about Nithral's issue. So moving on to the next one here. Alrighty, so this is from Bongo Mac and Cheese. I'm assuming that's mac and cheese. Your name sounds delicious. Okay, Mr. Mac and Cheese. So this is for basically says PC crashes after closing shortly after closing a game. PC crashes after closing shortly after closing a game. So basically, whenever he closes a game, that's when his PC crashes. Okay. I've been playing a game called Atlas, which has pretty bad memory leak problems, and I have been running into many problems for the most part, up until recently when my PC has started freezing about a minute after closing the game. It remains frozen until I hit the power button or it restarts itself. No BSOD, so no blue screen of death. What might cause this problem and how may I fix it? Okay, so whenever he closes the application, it freezes, which makes me think that it sounds exactly like a memory leak. It sounds like a graphical memory leak. So basically, the memory that has been allocated to this game has not been sent back to the pool and is having problems releasing that memory back to the graphics card so that I can apply it to other things. So that's what it sounds like, and whenever it's having problems with that, it's freezing. So yeah, it looks like it's literally having a memory leak problem. So if that's the case and that's the issue that you're currently experiencing, then it makes it a little difficult on how to handle that particular issue. Atlas, it sounds like a game that may actually really utilize the graphics card. So me saying go try integrated graphics to see if that works, but this sounds more like a game problem. It's kind of hard to go about it. I would wonder. So let's prove it, right? So let's work this issue in reverse. So this is a good example of an issue you'd flip. So whenever you're kind of stumped with a particular issue and you trying to fix it, but you don't know exactly how to go about it, reverse it. So in this kind of a situation, we think that it may be the game. Okay, well, if we think that it may be the game, and we know that it happens after about a minute after closing the game. So every single time it's after a minute. So if that's the case, go ahead and change it to the lowest settings humanly possible, like 640 by 480 or something like that, whatever your monitor can handle, in minimum graphics, and then play the game, and then close it. If it's faster, so like let's say, it freezes, but it only freezes for 15 seconds instead of a minute, it's a game issue. It's just a game issue. The game is having problems releasing memory back to the pool for the graphics card. That's what it sounds like. And that's how you would handle, and that's how you would prove that issue. So basically just lower your settings to whatever you need to lower it to in order to get this to work. And just lower it and then just play the game the same way you would normally play the game. It'll suck, but go ahead and do that. And then try to close it and see exactly what happens. If it takes 15 seconds, then yeah, it looks like you're having a game issue, in which case you may have to talk with their support in order to try to see if you can kind of get that going. But if it's the exact same amount of time, then it's not dependent on the game itself. It's just the game, whenever it closes, it doesn't matter what your settings are, and it doesn't matter how much RAM you allocate, it still does the exact same thing, which makes me think that you may have to update your graphics or something along those lines. If that's the only game that you're playing and you haven't tried any other games, I would try another game and try to close another game and see if you also have that problem. If you do in another game, then you may be looking at your graphics card, in which case you may want to update the driver or something along those lines. But if it's not giving you a blue screen of death, which means that it doesn't seem like the graphics card is having the problem, because the graphics card would have given you a blue screen of death, it seems more more like it's on the software side. And that's how I would troubleshoot the software side. I would just straight up just lower the settings and then close it and see if it's faster. So that's how I would handle that. I would actually just work that issue in reverse. So hope that helps, Mr. Mac and Cheese. But that's how I would handle that. I would straight up work that issue in reverse. Alrighty, these have been some good questions. Got me all warmed up now. So let's do this. Alrighty. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm clicking on here like that's gonna work. All right, where am I at? Okay, cool. Alrighty, this is from My Friendly Shadow. My Friendly Shadow writes, I want to delete files from my old hard drive. Okay. And so it says, just making sure I don't have any drop frames. I recently upgraded my laptop hard drive to an SSD drive. Awesome. The tech guy then gave me my old hard drive back in a casing so that I can use it as an external hard drive. He also copied all my info from one to the other, so my laptop is practically the same, just faster. Now here's my problem. I cannot seem to delete my old system files from my hard drive. Why would you need to? Some I can, even though it takes a while. Others just say I don't have permission to do so. Are there places I can go to completely wipe the hard drive? Is that even possible? Or are there an easier way to override this method to do so? Okay, I can explain exactly what happened here. It appears that whenever he swapped out his SSD drive, he gave him back his drive and the means to hook it up to a computer, but he didn't actually remove anything. So basically his C path is still on his hard drive. So because of that, you don't have permissions to access it because you're not using that as your main boot drive. So you're no longer local to that drive space. You're now foreign, you're remote from it, and you're trying to remote in from a hard drive, from your computer to that hard drive. So because of that, now you're foreign. So you have to add your permissions and verify your permissions, which should be the exact same that they've always been, so that you can log in and get to those particular file stores. So that's what is happening. But in this particular situation, an easier method to override, I would personally, because you're trying to use it as an external hard drive, you're not trying to use it as your C drive anymore. I would just take all the files that you need off, move them to your SSD, and then wipe the drive. That's the best way to handle that particular situation, because that's how you want to use it anyway. You want to use it as an external hard drive in this particular situation. You're not trying to use it as a C drive. You don't want your computer to boot from it. You just want to put all your files and games and stuff like that on it. So if that's the case, then just, wipe it. Copy everything to the SSD that you need and wipe the drive. And then once you wipe the drive, you'll automatically get rid of those files and you'll get rid of those permissions as well. And that's how you would handle that situation. So you just, move your files over and then just wipe the drive. Alrighty, I hope that helps, Mr. Shadow. And we're moving on to the next one. Whew. Okay, let me check the time. Okay, cool. Alrighty, so the next one here, it says, I don't know what PC I have and if a certain type of graphics card will go with it. Okay, cool. This is from Sir number 3579, and they write, my friend recently gave me his PC. That is awesome. And I've been trying to figure out what type of PC it is. Okay. And all I know is that it's a deep cool. Deep cool? Okay. The graphics are bad and it can't run many games. So I've been trying to figure out a good graphics card to buy, but I don't know if I need a certain one. Can somebody help? Well, a picture would help. I don't know exactly what that is, like a deep cool. It's kind of hard to say, because we may just be like, oh yeah, just any graphics card would actually work for this particular situation, but we can't really say that. It may be so old where it may not have a PCIe Gen 3 slot or Gen 2 slot X16, so you can actually put a graphics on it. It may only have like PCIe, like the original PCIe. It's hard to say. He said it runs kind of slow. And Deep Cool, I've never actually heard of that brand. So it really kind of depends, bro. What you would want to do in these kind of situations when you're trying to figure out exactly what you need to do with this PC, and it's a custom PC, is open it up and take pictures. So basically just open it up and then take a picture of the inside, and then anyone can answer your question at that point. That's how you would handle that situation. But ideally, a graphics card would help, but SSD would probably help more. You'll probably notice a lot more with just an SSD than you would just a graphics card. But of course, if we're talking about gaming, then obviously an SSD doesn't matter too much, but that was just to kind of fix the slowness issue. But that's how I would handle that situation. I would say, you know, go ahead and take a couple pictures and then upload them whenever you post this. That way we can actually take a look at them and see exactly how to handle that particular situation. But without looking at it, it's hard to say. Alrighty, moving on to the next one here. Alrighty, so this is from Godly. Okay, and Godly he writes, please, I'm in desperate need of help. Okay. Hello, I believe I have a corrupted file with something to do with my Windows update. When I go to it, it says something went wrong, try to reopen settings later. I have tried restarting my PC, SFC scan now on command, and it says I do in fact have a corrupted file, but it can't repair it. DISM online cleanup image check health also in command, and it tells me to use the source option to specify the location of the files that are required to restore the feature. For more information on specifying a source location, okay, I can use any help I really need it. Okay, so if you have a corrupted file and you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on with it, then well, you said you already kind of did a SFC scan now. He doesn't specifically say what kind of corrupted file it is. You know, he says, I have tried restarting my PC and scan now, and it says I do in fact have a corrupted file, but it can't repair it. Okay, online clean checkup also in command, and it tells me to use the source option to specify the location of the files that I require to restore the feature. Well, what's the feature? I have a corrupted file with something to do with my Windows update. Okay, well, here's what I would do in this particular situation. If you know when you got the issue, then I would actually go to your control panel and uninstall every Windows update you had since then. Literally all of them. And see if that resolves the issue. Is how I would handle that particular situation. Because if you uninstall everything and that fixes the issue, then just reinstall all of your drivers for the Windows update. Well, I guess it's not necessarily a driver, but install all of your files for the Windows update, reinstall them, and see if that resolves it. So the Windows updates, those files that it actually installs, you can ideally uninstall them. It's going to be located in your control panel, and it'll be like under like Windows Update or something like that, and from there you can actually uninstall those updates. So I would try to uninstall those updates and see if that resolves the issue, especially if you know when it happened. If you knew when the issue occurred, then that would be your best bet, is to uninstall and then reinstall those updates. But I would uninstall and then wait a couple days and see if that resolves the issue. Do an SFC scan now, see if everything is hunky-dory. If everything is hunky-dory, then you know it was one of those particular updates that came from Windows, and then, you know, give it like a day or so and then go ahead and reinstall the Windows updates and hope that it actually installs the correct file and not a corrupted file. And that's how I would handle that particular situation. That's probably the best way to handle that particular situation, in my opinion. So, you know, I'm sure other people would also have, you know, different opinions on how to handle that, but that's how I would kind of go about that. I would just, you know, just straight up uninstall the Windows updates back to whenever you had the issue and then just go from there. Alrighty, Godly. Moving on to the next one here, and then we may have to pull a couple more. Alrighty, so cool. So we got a Wi-Fi one, a networking one. Alrighty, so this is from Foster 6800. Foster writes, massive ping spikes on my Wi-Fi. This is an issue I've been struggling. I'm sorry, I was just dropping the frame. I was checking my frames to make sure I wasn't dropping anything. This is an issue I've been struggling with for over a year. My Wi-Fi has great download and upload speed, but will have massive ping spikes in hundreds or thousands of milliseconds every few seconds. Okay? Some days it will work perfectly, and others I'm unable to load anything on Chrome. No amount of Wi-Fi or computer restarts has helped. I believe the fiber optic cabling from Cox is just terrible on my street. Has anybody else experienced this issue or have a fix? Okay, here's the thing. So, oh, he has an image of the ping test. Let me look at that real quick. Okay. So if we look at the ping test here, basically, it just shows his packets are not, he has latency in his packets, but he's on Wi-Fi. So here's the thing here. So you can't actually just jump to the conclusion that the issue is on the line without trying it wired. Okay, so in this particular situation, what you would want to do in order to prove that the issue is with Cox is that you would want to try it wired. Because you brought Cox into the situation, it makes me think that you don't actually have a wireless router, because you would have said something about it. You wouldn't have just gone straight to Cox. If you've gone straight to Cox, then that usually means that you kind of have an all-in-one modem router and you're using Cox modem router's Wi-Fi in order to get connection. So typically, if that's the case, then it means it's a relatively up-to-date Wi-Fi, and it has 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bandwidth. So let's say he's more than likely on the 5 gigahertz bandwidth, but he's still having the issue, which means that either A, you may need to move closer, and maybe some metal in your house or some things that may be interfering with the signal, or if you're using the 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth, it may be saturated in your area. So in other words, you may live in an apartment complex and everybody else is also using that 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth, and because of that, it's making your signal spike, because other people are also utilizing that particular bandwidth. So if it's 2.4, I say switch to 5. If it's 5, I say switch to 2.4 and see if that resolves it, as well as move closer. Also, hook up wired. Now, if you hook up wired and you still see the latency, then I would look for a splitter. I would look for a splitter, bypass the splitter, and then I would call. The reason why I say it this way, and I say it this way specifically, is because I don't want you to get charged. Okay, because if you start calling Cox about this issue and they come to your house, to your home, and realize that you were trying on Wi-Fi, they're more than likely going to charge you. Okay, because you never hooked up wired. So they can charge you for a failed self-install because we weren't able to resolve that issue properly. The proper way to resolve that issue is to hook up wired. Now, of course, if you call, they'll tell you to do the exact same thing, hook up wired. So I'm telling you the same thing in this situation as well. So 2.4 to 5, 5 to 2.4, and hook up wired is how you would handle this particular situation, and see if the pings go away, because you're saying the massive spikes are happening, and based on your ping test, it's consistent, which is a good thing, which means that if it's consistent, that means you can test it. So get closer, try, if it's on 2.4, try 5, if it's on 5, try 2.4. If none of those work, then go ahead and hook up wired and see if that resolves the issue. And the reason why I was telling him to do 2.4 to 5 and 5 to 2.4 first is because at the end of the day, he wants to be on Wi-Fi. So for me to be like, oh, hey, go ahead and try wired, and if wired works, stay wired, that is irresponsible of me. I can't tell him to do that. Obviously, he wants to be on Wi-Fi. So if he wants to be on Wi-Fi, make Wi-Fi the decision and be first. So we troubleshoot the Wi-Fi first, in which case 2.4, 5, 2.4, so on and so forth. Get closer, and then try wired. So you want to cater how you troubleshoot based on what the customer wants. That is very, very important. You always want to make sure to cater it towards the customer. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're reading from a book. But in this case here, you also want to make sure that you're actually catering to what he wants. He obviously wants to be on Wi-Fi. Whew. Okay, so 8:44. Looks like we're making some good time here. Let me see. Let me grab a couple more here. Oh, a phone one. That's a new one. Let me try that. Ooh, Bitlocker. Let's do that. We haven't done a ransomware, so we'll go that route. All right, cool. So we'll start with this one here. Okay, sorry, this is from Sinoki. I'm sorry, I'm getting hot. As soon as I saw hot, I got hot. My phone is hot. Make sure I don't have anybody asking questions. Okay, cool. My phone is hot in normal use. So basically he's saying the screen of the phone drops to 30 to 33 degrees off. In normal use, it goes up to 40 degrees. After a while, 42 to 43 in games. The weather is 30 to 35 degrees and humid. Okay, I'm guessing he means Celsius. I'm using Greenify. I use the phone with a case, but even if I take it off, it doesn't affect it. Vance Micro G is constantly running in the background. There is nothing else. So he says he has a Huawei Mate 10 Lite, Android 8. And how do you think I can lower the temperature of the phone? Do you have an application in the background consuming too much CPU? that's actually a question that I would have asked. Like, do you have something in the background that's consuming too much CPU? Because that's the only thing that can make it overheat like that, is that you may have something in the background that's maybe overutilizing the CPU, or the battery may be going out. It depends on how long you've had this particular phone. If you've had it for a while, then it's a possibility that the battery pack is going out, and because it's going out, it's actually getting hotter. So that's a possibility, you know. Or the CPU is just overheating and it's getting too hot. So, you know, whatever type of cooling that it currently had is not working in this particular situation. Now, of course, a case does hurt it, but you know, you said you still have this issue even with the case off. So, you know, the best way to handle this particular situation is to make sure that you have no apps running in the background that's overutilizing the CPU. And there may be a app that you can download that keeps in track of the CPU utilization. Check the CPU utilization and see if it's being overutilized. Typically, it starts to spin up and ramp up when programs are overutilizing the CPU. So you may have something that is completely overutilizing the CPU of the phone, and therefore is making it run hot. So I would try to go that way around it as well. Also, of course, if you still have warranty, I would also check that route. But that's how I would handle that situation. I would make sure, you know, if there are any applications that are overutilizing the CPU, you know, if not, I would turn off all applications and see if that makes it cool off. You know, because he's saying, you know, if he gets that issue, you know, even at idle, he's saying he still gets that high degree count. Then, you know, it's kind of hard to say. It really kind of depends on just what's running, you know, or if the CPU and the battery may just had it, you know, and it's just, you know, way too hot. And, you know, over time, it's gotten to a point where there's not enough passive cooling to keep the CPU cool, therefore it's overheating. So I think if it's not a program that's overutilizing the CPU, you're going to be looking at a hardware issue. Unfortunately, that overheating is no joke. So that's how I would handle that particular situation. I'd try to go software first, and then I'd maybe have to move to hardware on this one. Sorry about that, bro, but that's how I would handle that particular situation. Alrighty, and let's go ahead and do this one here. This may end up being our last one for the day. Alrighty, and this is from School Questions. Alright, he said, Bitlocker locked me out of my laptop. How do I wipe it and reinstall Windows? Oh, I've had my run-ins with Bitlocker. Well, CryptoWall, CryptoKey, and then Bitlocker as well. I have a Dell Latitude 5590. I had a Dell Latitude 5590 so that I recently updated to Windows 11. It crashed and I was met with a screen that says, enter the recovery key for this drive. Okay. I never realized Bitlocker was set up, so I never saved a key. And oh, I'm sorry. He said Bitlocker. I was thinking of CryptoLocker or CryptoWall and CryptoLocker. I was thinking of malware. He's talking about Bitlocker. Bitlocker is a software that encrypts your drive for you. And when it encrypts your drive, it makes it so that, you know, whenever you update or you make any changes to the hash value, and it can be anything. It can be an update. It can be whatever. Putting in a new drive, replacing a drive, upgrading to an SSD, any of that changes the hash value. And when that happens, you have to actually put in your key. So, and in this case here, it says it crashed and I was met with a screen that says, enter the recovery key for this drive. I never realized Bitlocker was set up, so I never saved a key. And my Microsoft account does not have my device linked to it. So is there no way for me to get the key? I read that I would have to wipe it and reinstall Windows on it. If so, how do I do that? I know nothing about computers really, so if someone could explain it simply, I would really appreciate it. I have a USB if needed, but I hopefully don't have to buy Windows, right? It's hard to say. Okay, and the reason why I say it's hard to say is because you say you have a Dell Latitude 5590, but it really kind of depends on who you got it from. You know, if you bought it second party or second hand, then you may not actually have a version of Windows, and if you did have to wipe it, then you may have to buy Windows. But if it was first hand, or if it was a company laptop, then you more than likely do have a version of Windows on it, so you can just put in the same key that may be located on the bottom of the device, you know. Or if it's a work PC, then it's located in the BIOS settings itself, and whenever you reinstall Windows, it'll automatically put it in. So, you know, it really kind of just depends on what kind of device it is. but his question was, will he need to wipe and reinstall Windows? So there is a recovery option for Bitlocker if you don't know the password, and you can try the recovery option and see if that works for you. But outside of that, yeah, you may have to wipe it if you can't get around the recovery option. There may be a way to get around Bitlocker. I'm not really sure. I've never found one, but then at the same time, I've never gone looking. So you may be able to Google Bitlocker, or trying to find a way around getting around that Bitlocker issue, and maybe look online and see. But outside of recovery, that's the only real way that I've seen to get around the whole Bitlocker situation, because I have that problem all the time. Whenever I upgrade my work laptop to an SSD or an NVMe SSD, it automatically kicks me to Bitlocker, and it forces me to re-put in the information because the hash value changed. And so I have to re-put in the information, and I have to get it approved or whatever. And then once it comes in, then I have to remove the encryption and then re-add the encryption to get it back working with the new hash value, so that it won't do it again. So that definitely happens there. But unfortunately, that's kind of usually the only two ways you can handle that. You can either try to wipe it, or you can try to recover it. It's typically the way you would handle a Bitlocker issue. I'm so sorry about that, Mr. School Questions, but that's how ideally you would handle that particular situation. Alrighty, and we are going to call it here. So that is like 10 issues. And yeah, I think I'm getting pretty good at this. So yeah, guys, that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll obviously cut these up and start making some little videos off of them. Hopefully some of these help. I think I do now actually have the ability to actually reply to some of this stuff on Reddit. So I would actually post some of these, maybe post the video links on Reddit, but I don't think it allowed me to on these particular topics. So I may have to just type it out. But I'll try to get that added to them, so that I can try to get them some help if they haven't already been helped. Some of these have been, but we'll see how that goes, and just take it from there. Alrighty, Sporm. I think we're starting to get some stride here, picking up some steam. I think we're on episode 5 or 6, so we're kind of getting there. I actually am just gonna straight up call this a podcast just to make life a little bit easier for myself. But that is gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Just making sure nobody had any questions, and nobody did. So if you like this video, go ahead and like button. If you really like it, go to subscribe. I love you either way. Take care. All the best, and bye.